Hello and welcome to Between the Lines. On this show, you will hear about and from lesser-known Canadian authors and writers who, for whatever reason, have remained under the radar of traditional publishers and publishing houses. If it has something to do with writing or the writing process, you are going to hear a discussion about it here. I'm your host, Randy Lacey, and I encourage you to grab your bevy of choice, get comfy, and get ready to go between the lines. People come into writing in several different ways. For some, it was a teacher at school handing out a writing assignment. For others, it may have been by reading and wondering if they might be able to write. Every writer has started their writing journey on a different path. Each writer's journey will be different, yet similar. But one thing all writers have in common is a different destination.
Welcome to the final episode of Season 2 of Between the Lines. Today, I have decided to bring back a previous guest for a couple of reasons. First, she was my very first interview. And secondly, although it was a good interview, it was done in a live setting. Therefore, it was an uncontrolled interview. Today, we are in a more controlled space, so I thought it would be fair to bring her back at the conclusion of Season 2. She started Season 1, she's ending Season 2. And with that said, let me introduce my next guest. Hello, Terry, and welcome back to Between the Lines.
Hi, Randy. It's nice to be back. Thanks for inviting me.
Oh, it's my pleasure, actually. You've done so much for the show, and you still do so much for the show. I say welcome back, but it's in a way you've never left. What has happened in the last year since your first interview?
Oh my, it's been exciting. After 6 years of living in the motorhome and spending summers in the Yukon, we actually moved to Vancouver Island. Spent the four months over the winter at a gorgeous RV park, Oceanside, Living Forest Oceanside RV. I love the name because it was just gorgeous. The reason we moved now we live in Ladysmith, and the reason we moved here is we became grandparents.
Woohoo!
Yeah, we have a granddaughter named Lily, and she's the light of our lives, and we are privileged to be able to be a big part of her life. We're only 20 minutes away, and we spend lots of time with her and her parents. So we're on a new adventure.
A new adventure. So you're not far from Nanaimo either then, are you?
No, Ladysmith's about 20 minutes away. The highway is just down the road from where we live.
That's south, I think, isn't it, from Nanaimo?
Yeah.
I used to live in Ladysmith.
Oh, what? Oh my gosh.
Back in the 80s, I was a resident at the Island Tent and Trailer Park in Ladysmith.
Oh, holy cow. It's such a small world, isn't it?
Yes. So anything else you want to add?
Well, the motorhome's up for sale.
Oh, okay.
We're not going to do any more traveling that way. And then we're going to wait till the flying airplane thing gets sorted out.
What about your gold panning up in the Yukon?
That's actually, my husband wants to do one more trip up there to, drive up the Dempster to Inuvik and go the Alaska route. When you drive up there for work, and then it's like shoulder seasons where nothing's open, we want to do a trip during the summer where everything's open and it's warm and we can drive up the Dempster and we can drive the Alaska highway. So one more trip probably is in the works, but we'll probably do it
next year
in our truck and not a motorhome.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I think they're just coming out of the midnight sun season.
Yes. Yeah, this is the time when it's starting to get cold again and dark earlier. So I do miss it though. It's such a beautiful setting to write in.
Dawson City's on my bucket list.
Awesome. Yep. I think every Canadian should visit it.
Well, absolutely. Well, one of my favorite authors pretty much
Oh
resides
yeah,
up there,
Robert
as,
Service.
as you know. Yes. All right. Well, if there's nothing else you want to add, let's move right into part one, which, as I, as everybody knows by now, I call question period. And this
Uh-huh.
is where I get to ask you pertinent questions about all things writing. And of course, these are all pre-selected by you, except for maybe one or two. Are you ready?
Yes.
All right. Question number one. Terry, do you think it's important for anyone who thinks they're a writer to get education for it?
People that write for fun, I don't think they need much more than imagination and determination and access to a pen and paper or computer. But if you want to write for others, there's definitely value in learning more about the craft. I've never stopped learning about how to improve my writing. It's each book I write is a challenge to me. Like, okay, this one I'm gonna work on adding more layers to the characters, and I believe education is really important if you want to write seriously, especially if you want to be published. And even if you learn more about, grammar and sentence structure and stuff, it'll save you a whole lot of time when you're editing. Of course, I'm the kind of writer that edits as I go, and I've tried not to, but it keeps my thoughts clear, so I don't really get the flow as much as I want.
It almost goes against conventional wisdom, doesn't it?
Yeah, I know. I can speak the speak, but I can't write the write.
That is brilliant. Going back to something you said, though, who do you write for? Do you write for yourself or do you write for other people?
I write for myself first and foremost, and that's the challenge I put to myself is when I read, different writing tips or I don't know other tips that it inspires me in my own writing. So first and foremost, I write for me as a challenge and just to, the fun of putting together a story. But I have a small readership that I also write for. And I, and it's small because I, okay, well, we'll get into that later. Marketing sucks. But I know my audience and they're the same as me. So it makes writing so much more pleasurable because I can write for myself, knowing I have people that also like the way I write.
That makes
yeah.
sense to some degree. And it makes sense to you that that's all that matters.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't make much sense.
Or you're like me as a writer. I don't make any sense at all. I don't even make dollars.
Yeah, I know. Those dollar signs. My poor husband's still waiting for the bestseller.
You know as well as I do that there are people, writers, who write for the sake of making a living from it. And there are others who just write because of the love of it. And if they sell it, great. If not, hey, this is what I've done. Which one are you?
Oh, I'm definitely the one that isn't focused on making money. Because I can't do the work to make it pay. It takes a lot of work. I know some authors and they are just doing great because they are getting out there and they're promoting and they're on all the social media and stuff like that. But it takes a lot of time and I'd rather be writing or cuddling my granddaughter. There's a balance to my life that I hold dear.
Marketing is a full-time job for writers.
Yes, I think so. If you want to be successful or known, I think there's definitely work involved.
It's like one of the sayings I always say is I don't write for profit. I profit from writing, and that's only to say that the profit from writing is that it makes me better.
Yes. See, that's where the education comes in, where I'm writing to learn more about writing, which is, to me, is a lot of fun. I can't quite loop that around to your good saying. Your saying works. Never mind mine.
All right, we'll move on to question 2. And I totally forget we said any of that. I'll probably edit it anyway. How much of yourself would you say goes into something you've written?
Oh gosh, a lot. I think all these books I'm writing are either dreams of mine, like things that, well, with my latest book, Hidden Gems, it's about 10 strangers who win a luxurious home in an exclusive gated community from a contest they don't remember entering. So for me, when we were looking for a house when we lived in Kelowna, I'd see these, lovely little houses and good price, but they were in a gated community, 55 plus. And that was before I hit that magical number. And I remember just feeling like, oh, that's no fair. Look at all the fun they're having. They have a pool and they have an activity center and they look like they're having happy hours and stuff. That went into this book because that was my what if. So yeah, and Tess, the main character, Tess, is an 11-year-old girl, doesn't really want to grow up, and I think she's probably a lot like me. And one of my aunts actually asked, "Is that a little Terry I see in that book?" And I'm like, probably. And then she goes, "And is that your brother Steve, who's that 10-year-old friend?" And I'm like, you know what? I think it is. And I had so much fun writing those two characters, and I think that's why. Because when he was little, he was a little monkey, but we got along so well because he brought out my less serious side. Anyway, Tess was a fun book to write because of that.
You brought up another question, one that I typically try to weasel in anyway, but when you're writing or you create a character, how many of people that you know, friends, family, whatever, do you borrow characteristics from to put into your characters?
Yes, sometimes something will click. I don't have like a list of characteristics or things, but there have been some, like people I meet, there's something that stands out. I'll kind of remember that. So yeah, there's other people in my books too, but just little bits. There's never a full character that comes through. I'd get in a lot of trouble if that was the case.
You kind of touched on this by saying this, but has anybody ever read anything and said, "Hey, that's me"?
No, but I once had a friend that I told was inspired by them. But when I reread the parts, it didn't really match. So they read the book for nothing.
Well, not for nothing. That's another story for another interview. How many writing projects do you have on the go at any one time?
Right now I'm writing a sequel to Hidden Gems, and I started a sequel to Tess, and I've got 2 or 3 short stories that are always on the back burner, and I'll go and dabble in those for a bit if I'm kind of stuck with the stories. But Tess is kind of on the back burner lately too, because with Hidden Gems just being published in May, it's still fresh in my memory. And I want to take advantage of that because I still know the characters, and they're just coming off of this one story, and now I'm putting them into another situation. So it's definitely easier, but I'm still taking care to not rush through it, because that can just lead to just this shallow book that's not doing justice to the first book. That's always hard too. Following up on a first book is, I did that with Arcadia, Deception, and Flight Control. Flight Control was the sequel, and it was actually really hard to write. But it turned out pretty good. But I haven't mentioned that book to anybody in a long time. Although I met a friend here that actually bought all 4 of my books and was very excited. So that was after a little bit of convincing me to sell them.
And that, my friends, is why I stick to poetry. You don't have to worry about keeping up with the story.
Oh, yes, that's true.
What is your writing goal?
My writing goal is to keep writing until I write the best novel of my ever. It means I'll be writing until I can't anymore. And there'll probably be a few unfinished projects when I'm gone. But I just want to keep writing until I reach my own pinnacle of success in, looking at a book and going, oh my God, this was perfect. But then, of course, no, that's perfect. But wait, there's more.
But wait, there's more.
Yeah.
So until you reach your zenith or your apex of what you think you're capable of, until you find yourself wanting to push yourself beyond that.
Yes.
Because that's all writers do, is push themselves beyond.
Yeah, that's the, like where they push the carrot further away.
Mm-hmm.
You always are striving to reach that, but that's why I figure I'm trying to write to my best ability for as long as I can. That's basically my goal, I think.
Till they pry that pen out of your cold, dead hand.
Yep.
or move that keyboard from your cold, dead finger. Anyway.
Yes. Oh, that sounds morbid, doesn't it?
Well, yeah, but it's, borrowing from Planet of the Apes.
Oh, yes. Yep.
A pantser, plotter,
I'm a plotter.
Or plantster, which do you primarily adhere to in your writing?
Plotter. I thought for a while there I was a plantser, but plotter. I definitely need that guideline. I used the hero's journey to start out to plot the story and create the scenes, and then go back, back and forth, filling in different scenes as I get inspiration. But without an outline, I would just write and write and write, and go off on tangents, which can be a lot of fun, and I can sometimes get some good material from it, but it doesn't help me move the story forward. So I definitely need to plot it and kind of stay. But I know the ending, but sometimes the ending changes. Either there's
is that because of the characters doing, or?
Yeah, the characters will take charge, and suddenly the idea that I had for them, they're off on a different journey.
That's not what I meant for you.
Yeah, I know. It's like, yeah, but this sounds better. Okay, we'll go with this then. See how far it goes.
Now, you mentioned something I want to go back to. A hero's journey. What's that?
Oh, that's Joseph Campbell's. I read that book years and years ago, and all the Disney movies follow the hero's journey, where there's a glimpse of the home world, and then there's a call to adventure, and then sometimes they refuse that call, but then something in their home world changes and they kind of have to, or they decide they want to go on the adventure. What else is there? There's a spiritual guide or somebody that helps lead you through the adventure. And then, of course, there's, tests, because your character has to have a goal and like
obstacles and yeah.
So then there's the different steps along the way, and then the one that you're coming down and it's all hope is lost.
Mm-hmm.
You can kind of picture in some of the Disney movies where everything they've tried just isn't working, and they can't slay the dragon, or they can't get out of this pit of despair, but then they use something from their virtues or flaws or whatever, and they get themselves out. So it's a really good guideline, especially for first-time writers, to kind of get them on the right path to make a cohesive story. Because if you just start writing a story thinking, oh yeah, I'll just write it and go for it, without any structure, it can get away from you. Because that's happened to me, where it gets so long and you think you can kind of, fix scenes and move scenes to get it to work, but holy, I'm doing a lot of scrolling.
So from everything that you've written and published, how much would you say you have left over back in the, your back pages that
Oh
never
gosh.
saw the light of day?
Oh, Hidden Gems. I was working on that for over 3 years. And that was the one I was challenging myself to, really deepen the characters. And I started out with a male main character. And after like 70,000 words, I decided to switch it to a female main
Oh my
character.
goodness. No.
And then I just kept writing and writing and writing to develop these characters and put them in situations. And I got up to almost 170,000 words, which was more than enough for 2 novels. And I then decided that I couldn't put it into 2 novels because the main character's story arc for that first story, it couldn't go over 2 novels. So I edited and edited and edited. And oh my God, it went down to 45,000 words. I was ruthless, but man, was it fun. I have a lot of leftovers, especially from Hidden Gems. And so far, I haven't actually used any of that in my sequel, which is interesting. All that time I spent writing those thousands of words. And yeah.
So do you plan on using any of that leftover?
Well, now that I mention it, I might take a look at it.
You're welcome. What area of your writing do you think needs the most improvement?
Oh, story development. I find it hard to build a story around characters. I think because finding conflict, but also I have to know my characters well enough to figure out what would cause them to, react badly to some conflict. So I think that's probably been my problem before, is not knowing my characters well enough and just throwing them into something. I'm hoping that's with the sequel. This is where I'm challenging myself, is to use the characters, knowing them, and then creating interesting conflicts that will set off a domino effect, because they all will react differently. They'll all, choose something different. In saying that, I have a big cast, it's the 10 strangers that are now friends from the gated community, plus a few add-ons. But and with the Hidden Gems book, I had 4 different point of views. This one, I'm whittling it down to, trying to whittle it to 2, but I don't think I can. So it's going to be three points of view, alternating chapters, which gives a deeper look into each of their characters. And I like doing that because I still haven't quite figured out how to do omniscient without being just a storyteller. Because omniscient, you can just, tell everything and anything about what they're thinking and what their motivation is. You don't even have to have your characters even say anything.
Right.
But nobody wants to read a book where it's just telling. I read one like that, and I found it hard to finish.
Well, from the omniscient point of view, you can tell past, present, and future at any given point you want too.
Yes. Yeah. So that's a lot of power and a lot of responsibility to write a good book using that. So I tend to use the third person limited point of view, which is one character will be focused on one chapter will be focused on one character and only seen through their eyes and what they're thinking. So that's why I like having 3, because then I can have 3 characters covering the rest of the characters, kind of having one of the secondary or tertiary characters, tell the other character something that adds to the story, as opposed to nobody knowing what they're thinking because they're just in the background. So that's actually another part that I'm working on, is the point of view, how I want to experiment with writing differently, maybe omniscient, or maybe I think nowadays first person point of view is quite popular, but Yeah.
That's because everything is about me. Me.
Yes. Yeah.
Going back to that, what was it, the hero's journey and stuff. Have you ever heard of the snowflake method?
Yes. Yeah, actually, I've tried that too. And it works really good and actually I've done that for chapters because you have the main idea and then you can expand, like have all of the ideas off of that just to kind of brainstorm. I think that's a really good method. I've never used it for actual whole novel. I've used that to kind of push my brainstorming and just throw out like even the silliest ideas.
You never know where they go to, right? Yeah.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. What do you consider the hardest part about your writing journey so far? Is it the writing? Is it the publishing? Or is it like everybody else, the marketing?
We're all in this together.
Yeah, no doubt.
Marketing is such a nuisance. And it's not even just for writers, it's for artists. My daughter's a wonderful, talented artist who would just love to be painting, but marketing is part of getting your stuff out there. So I gave up on it early on. I don't actively promote my books, mainly because I can't do it well, and to do it properly can cost money, and it definitely takes time. So I still kind of wish word of mouth worked better than it does. It used to work great, and I still rely on word of mouth to find books to read. And Goodreads is kind of like a word of mouth, your list of friends, and you'll see what they're reading and be able to pick stuff. My oldest daughter and I are always sharing books. She'll call up and say, "Oh, I was thinking of you and I read this book. You got to read it." And within seconds I'll download it on my Kindle and start reading it. I'm always looking for recommendations. So it's kind of sad that.
Well, I can give you 10 books of poetry I can recommend to you. They're all the same.
Well, too. I already have those. You were so generous last time I visited. Don't you remember?
I do.
And I only gave you one measly Robert Service book.
Oh, but that meant the world to me. It's on my coffee table right now.
Oh, that's what I like to hear.
So as you know, because for those listening, Terry also edits all the transcriptions from all the podcasts. So she takes the AI poor translations of what it thinks it hears, and she corrects them. She does this out of the kindness of her heart, and of which I'm forever grateful for. And but yeah, so that's the thing why she's still connected to this show in the way that she.
Yeah. Well, it's been a pleasure because I really get a lot more out of the interviews doing that. And if we can just figure out what that little gremlin is that keeps on doing my editing, things will be way better. But what I found, I've discovered that I enjoy that so much that if I've edited a transcript and then go to publish or whatever, and then the edits haven't updated, I kind of like, oh, shoot. Well, maybe the F word. Anyway, but I just turn around and I just do it all over again because it's so, I used to be a medical transcriptionist and I just loved doing it. And this is kind of similar, but with having the transcript pre-written out. Mm-hmm. It's just a matter of going in and listening and fixing as I go. But it's just, I'm really enjoying it, despite the gremlins.
Despite the gremlins. And again, I can't reiterate how much and how grateful I am for you offering to do that for the show. And
you're welcome. It's been a pleasure, and I call it my volunteer job because I don't really want to work at the hospital auxiliary thrift store.
All right, so Terry, it's time for that question that you have no idea what's coming. It's the ever mysterious mystery question number 8. So here it goes. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
If I showed up on your doorstep in my time machine and said, "Hey, Terry, let's go," when and where would you go, and why?
Oh, yikes!
You're welcome.
You know what automatically came to my mind was the Beatles. I guess I would probably love to meet the Beatles.
Really?
Yeah, that was the first thing that popped in my head. I'm not sure why. They're not even authors.
No, it doesn't be author related though.
But they have been such a huge part of our world, and even my world growing up. And to this day, they are the songs that I would go to listen to.
Okay,
So
that would be the Who, but what period of the Beatles?
well, probably just before they got famous.
Oh, okay, so the Cabinet.
Because if they were famous, you wouldn't get within 2 feet of them.
Time machine supersedes all restrictions.
Yeah, so that was a weird answer that I didn't even think would come up.
Well, that's funny because one of the people I interviewed for season 2, her response was a certain concert in 1969 in upstate New York.
Oh. Yeah. Oh my God, I just lost that word. The big one.
Yeah, it's Snoopy's bird friend.
Okay, this is what happens a lot when I'm conversing with somebody. Oh, Woodstock.
There you go.
Okay, I got it. Oh man, that was hard.
And that's why doing these interviews is so fun.
I'm in my head a lot. It's just the two of us now. My husband's retired, but he's doing his own thing, and I get some hours to myself, and I'm in my head, and I don't. Some mornings I'll come out of the second room where my table is, desk, and my voice will be croaky because I haven't spoken in hours. So yes, missing words is part of getting older. I mean, I am proud to say I'm 61, but it's definitely, it can stop a conversation in its tracks.
Much like what just happened?
Yes. Yes. Yeah.
Is he gone? Is he gone?
I could say, that's it. It's over. Oh no. Anyway.
That's fun. But yeah, no, that'd be an interesting time and place to go to, So obviously, early Liverpool or early London or the capital in Germany before they got really, really big.
Yeah, somewhere in there.
Before Ringo joined them or after Ringo?
Oh, interesting. Because Pete Best was there first.
Mm-hmm.
Probably with Ringo because he's part of the Beatles now, or he's the one that most people remember, and most of the songs are with him. So I'd say yeah.
But you just popped off Pete Best's name like as if it was ingrained in your mind as being part of the Beatles, right?
Well, it's funny when I was in elementary school, I had a friend that always liked to put on plays and stuff, and apparently I was the closest to not Paul McCartney, but oh my God, here it comes again. The other guy. George, yeah.
Harrison?
If we were put on a play about the Beatles, I'd be George Harrison. And she'd always be Paul McCartney.
Ah.
So yeah. I guess that the Beatles are a definite part of my childhood and growing up. And that's probably why I like revisiting or trying to rediscover who I was at that age. Like they always say there's a certain age that you were your true self before society got a hold of you.
Oh, I'd hate to even think about that.
Yeah. And it's kind of sad that we lose that, but there's ways to get back to it. And that was that's part of what Hidden Gems was too. One of my initial goals was to make it kind of whimsical and a place where these older people could, play and be be young again. I don't think I pulled it off as much, but that was one of the original ideas. Because their announcements that they've won this house comes in this purple, sparkly envelope with glitter and stickers and stuff like that. So there's a little bit of whimsy in it, but not unrealistic. So there's always that.
Facebook has a way of bringing people together and bringing back old memories. And of what you were saying about when you were a kid, there's a guy on Facebook who reminded me how when we were 9 or 10 years old, we would put on concerts in his garage and we would dress up like members of the group Kiss.
Oh my God.
And his sister and her friends were our audience.
Oh, that's superb. My husband is a big Kiss fan. And I don't know if he ever dressed up, but it's amazing. The music rock stars were a big influence as well. I don't know if it is as much now, but when we grew up, we were so lucky to have all those different groups.
And when we say musicians, we mean real musicians. Anyway, another story, another podcast.
Yeah, maybe interview a musician one time.
Well, actually, the upcoming episode is with, he's a small press owner. He's a musician, writer. He wears many, many hats. But yeah, I've listened to some of his music, just fantastic. But that's for an upcoming show. And if you want to hear it, you'll have to listen in.
Awesome. I'll edit
it. We're going to move on to part 2, which I love to call shameless plugging, because this is really why I do what I do, because there's a lot of authors out there like you and me and a slew of others who don't really get the break that I feel that they deserve. So this is an opportunity for them to come on, talk about what they do, why they love to do it, and where people can find the things that they do. Did that make sense?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It's really generous of you to do this, because, like we've all agreed, marketing is really tough and takes away from that precious writing time. So you having these interviews to let other people get to know these unknown, lesser known authors, it's really, really appreciated. I really appreciate you taking the time. So, I've got 4 books published.
Well, let me ask you a question first.
Oh, sorry. Oh dear. I guess I know your interview things well.
Well, you do. You've been listening to 32 of them. Okay, so I will do the official segue into this. So this is the part where you get to shamelessly plug yourself without fear of embarrassment. Are you okay with that?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, question number 1. What works do you currently have in publication that the listeners can purchase, and where can they find them?
I have 4 books published. The first was in 2015, and that was Arcadia Deception, and its sequel, Flight Control. They're both set in 2065, and those came about with a what if question. What would happen to the helicopter parenting kids of today, or the over parenting or whatever?
Mm-hmm.
What would happen to them in 50 years, because they'd be adults, and if they don't. So anyway, it's got vague sci-fi. They go in heli cars, and there's drones that deliver the packages, and there's meals delivered directly to the apartments. But Arcadia is a big corporation that has taking care of all these fearful people. They're afraid to go out anymore. They play on the computers as their livelihood. The corporations take care of them. And it all started because the CEO wanted to help renew the earth. So getting everybody to just stay inside all the time, the earth was able to renew itself and without human intervention. And that's kind of the background. So I threw everything into those stories, so they're pretty good.
Kind of sounds like a merger between Amazon and Meta.
Yes. Yes. Arcadia is actually another word for utopia.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So, and I had lots of, subtle, I don't know. Never mind.
Okay. Never minding.
Yeah. And Tess is my third book. And that was set in Dawson City in 1905. And because the Yukon was our second home for 6 years over the summers, I had to write one set in Dawson. And I set it after the gold rush because Dawson City was still a vibrant Edwardian type town. And that's with the 11-year-old Tess plucked from the booming little town of Vancouver to go way up to the Yukon with her mom. Her uncle is missing and presumed drowned, and her dad's missing in the Boer War. And she meets this eccentric little 10-year-old boy. And they have great adventures, and it's kind of fast-paced and for all ages, not just the young adults. And then my latest one is Hidden Gems, and it's a fun story, lots of characters, but I've managed to rein them in. And they don't know who their mysterious benefactor is. So of course, in the back of their mind, they're wondering if, suddenly they're going to be taken down to a basement and tested on, or, somebody wants a 70-year-old kidney or something. There's this one guy that's the conspiracy theorist guy. So that's got humor and twists that are kind of fun. And it's all my books are mainly about friendship and family.
Was there anything else in life?
I know those are ongoing themes that are important to all of us. So that's
I just want to go back and point out that it's amazing how those conspiracy theorists pop up everywhere.
I know. They should be writing books. I mean, they've got the imagination that I wish I had.
No.
They can just spin a tale like you can't believe.
Or can. Depending on your bend.
Yeah, I can't believe I kind of lean towards science.
All right, so you've kind of already touched on this as well, but are you currently working on anything? And if so, how close to completion is it?
Well, it's when I say it out loud and in the public, it means I have to finish it now.
Yep, you're committed.
But
or should be.
It'll be the sequel to Hidden Gems. And I mentioned earlier that it's a bit easier because I now know the characters and how they'll react. So I'm still in the process of kind of playing around with the story, and I think it'll be fun too once I get into it. And I'm not going to rush through it either. It won't take 3 years, but I've got about 30,000 words so far, and room to grow, definitely, but not overgrow.
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah.
The next question is one that everybody gets asked, and it's the least favorite that anybody ever wants to answer because it's like picking your favorite sibling or child or whatever. So, is there one of your books which you are more particularly fond of, and why?
I would say Hidden Gems. It's my two of my daughters designed the cover, and I really like it. It's colorful and whimsical, and each of my books have been a family affair. They've designed each of the covers. Christy is the artist, and Joanna is a graphic design artist. And I like the story. I'm in that age bracket now, and we actually live in a 55 plus building. So yay, I got over the wall. Actually, we don't have a wall, but there is a sense of community here. We don't have a swimming pool or happy hours, but we do have, coffee time once a month, and we've got the odd barbecue and stuff. But I feel like I belong. And so Hidden Gems has that feeling of belonging. Like they're kind of thrown together. They didn't know each other. They didn't know why they were chosen. But in that circumstance, they all are coming together as becoming friends and not just neighbors. And that's also, like, if you could pick your neighbors, wouldn't it be fun to have a gated community filled with your friends, the ones that you would choose to live close to? Each has their own place.
But they didn't start out that way, did they?
What's that?
They didn't start out that way, did they?
No, which is kind of neat. Throw them into that, and they tend to. But there is a threat to their little community, which brings them together.
There has to be.
Yeah.
So without giving it away, I mean, there's obviously, you say they win a contest they never knew that they entered. There's got to be an explanation somewhere. Is that?
Oh yes, there is. At the end. Yep.
Fully explained in the first book, or partially?
Yeah. Oh, in the first book, it's definitely explained.
Oh, okay.
Yep. And I never saw it coming.
Okay. All right. So here's the big question. I remember the first time we went through the interview, you really didn't have a whole lot to say about this. Let's see if you've got any updates. Where can people connect with you? Things like email, website, snail mail, blog, Meta, formerly Facebook, Twitter, TikTok. I could go on.
Yeah, that's a long list, and I have a website.
You do?
Yeah, that's it. TALeinemann.wordpress.com, and there's a way to a link to contact me through the website.
Okay.
And it's TALeinemann@hotmail.com as well.
Okay.
But I decided not to have an author page on Facebook because too many of my friends and my author friends have been having trouble with bots and trolls and stuff.
Okay.
And I decided I didn't want to have to deal with those. I'm protective of my Facebook page because I already got a warning.
What did you say?
Do you remember me telling you about that?
Yep.
We met on Canada Rights.
Yep.
A couple years ago.
Yep.
Well, because we're always on the road and Wi-Fi is spotty and will kick me out at their whim, I was commenting on somebody's post, and I was telling them I read their book and I enjoyed it, and I was going to leave a review on Amazon.com. Well, they took offense to that, not the person I was commenting, but Facebook, because you can't put just Amazon.com. It has to be a specific link, even if I don't even know if you're allowed to put links anymore.
Yep.
And I totally am blocked from Canada Rights now. I can't even find it on the internet. Or maybe I can, but I can't access it. And at first I was devastated. I couldn't believe I'm a rule follower to the T. So anyway, it was the best thing that happened because it got too big.
Well, yeah. And that's part of the reason why I left the group. Well, not left the group, but I'm still a member, but I don't associate a whole bunch anymore.
Yeah. So my books can be on Amazon and Kobo in paperback and ebook versions. Okay. And they're at the Okanagan Regional Library System and Ladysmith Library. And you can ask any Canadian library to order them in if you want. So. Yes,
the lending programs, yes.
Yep.
Yes.
And that's me.
Well, Terry, thank you so much for agreeing to come on once again. And
my pleasure.
Update and be a part of this again, or still, I mean, because we know that you do so much for the show anyway, but It's always a pleasure talking to you. It's always a pleasure, just even on Facebook or whatever. It's fun talking with you. I love to bounce
Yeah.
ideas off you, and so this is just an updated version of you now for the podcast. So thank you very much for coming on.
Oh, thank you so much, Randy. This was a lot of fun. It was nice to talk to you again. And thanks for helping all of us lesser known writers and authors. I appreciate it.
No problem. Have a good day.
Yeah, you too.
You have been listening to Between the Lines. In future episodes, I will not only be speaking with Canadian authors and writers, I will also be speaking with those from the other side of the writing industry, editors, agents, and publishers, in the hopes of getting a better understanding of how it all works together. If you liked what you heard, hit the subscribe button to be notified of new episodes and content. Send all your comments, suggestions, or any questions you'd like to have a guest answer to me at randy.bplpodcast@gmail.com. Be sure to visit me at www.therandylacey.ca. While there, look for the Buy Me a Coffee button to help support the podcast. Thank you for your time and your ears. Tune in, be inspired, and write on.